Global Television, building the...
I am from everybody, I am nobody.
No, you're not talking to me.
No, in another way.
How are you sure, sir?
Keep quiet. I am in another way. I am
the only area where Buhari defeats for that statement. Now only appointment. Why are you talking about project? The project spell at all. You need to spell at all. What does this come out? But you say appointment, and in the type of appointment, you appoint people you trust. But if you like the man, I'm ready to whether our leaders are the number when they get the position first. Why una no come win APC? Why una no win Now, see, let me tell you.
Very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us here on Global Morning. I'm Uyag Mofwegbe. This is Global Television. We are in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, and these are live broadcasts of our breakfast show where we look at topical issues and then we do a wrap of major stories across the country and beyond. Just on Saturday, for instance, we heard that the President Bola Tinubu had left France for England. Of course, he had been attending the Global Financing Pact Summit in France for 3 days straight. By Saturday, he had left Paris for the United Kingdom, where we are told by his aides that he's on a private visit. However, it was also clearly stated that he would be back in the country just early enough for the Salah. So we're looking forward to that. But then a lot of persons would say that not so much is happening right now at the national level in Nigeria because, one, the president isn't around, whatever that means. Second, appointments, substantial appointments have not been made, especially ministerial appointments. So we're hoping when the president returns, one of his first lines of priority will be to send a ministerial list to the National Assembly for confirmation. All right, we're looking forward to that because Nigeria needs to move on. We need to get a lot of things off the ground in this country, especially looking at the fact that we have a new government in place now, and there is need to leverage this energy for the most, for the best of outcomes for the country. All right, but let's see what the news says this morning about developments around the world, particularly in our country, and how that provides an insight into where we are heading as a nation. We'll begin our papers review this morning with Daily Trust, which of course has several headlines in front of it. Okay, just above the nameplate it says, Butcher accused of blasphemy lynched in Sokoto. Showdown looms in Senate over minority leader seat. Liberalization without palliatives will plunge more Nigerians into poverty. That's Daily Trust's economist speaking there. But then the big story on the front page of the Daily Trust is Naira devaluation, Nigerian banks heading for recapitalization. Capital base eroded by $4.5 billion since 2005. Apex Bank source. Experts kick against regulatory induced change. How banks' capital base decreased with Naira devaluation. You find a breakdown in picture. All right, today's Daily Trust features infographics on how banks' capital base decreased with Naira devaluation. You can find that on the front page of today's Daily Trust newspaper. All right, so if you look at the foot of today's Daily Trust, it says 6 Nigerian pilgrims die of cardiac arrest, 15,860 treated in Saudi Arabia. That story is on page 6 of today Daily Trust newspaper. All right. Daily Trust reporters win oil gas award, MTN fellowship. Zenith Bank's Adam wins chief financial officer award in South Africa. Bandits abduct 3 farmers, rustle 60 cows in let's see, in Kaduna. All of those are stories you can find on today's Daily Trust newspaper. Okay, so we turn to this Nigeria now, and let's see what this Nigeria says. That will be on page. Okay, let's see. The big story there says flood of tears. Abuja residents sacked by flood. Recount ordeal. Over 100 buildings submerged. That story is found on page 2 of this Nigeria. Okay, and what else? If you look at the right end of the front page, it says we'll partner traditional rulers in building prosperous rivers, says Fubara on page 7. Okay, you find that there. The NDLEA intercepts consignments in Lekki on page 23. I foresee Tinubu freeing Kanu, says former PSC chair. Okeke, page 11. Salah, Nigerians groan over high prices of ram foodstuff. Ram, we are told, now sells for 250,000 naira. I mean, between 180,000 and 250,000 naira. Okay, of course, the economic realities are also rubbing off on prices of these essentials naturally. But let's look at first news for you this morning. Besides the nameplate of first news, it says 50 killed, 179 houses razed as Imo community boils. Governor Abiodun fell out with me because of Tinubu, Benga Daniel. Alleged blasphemy, mob lynches, butchering, Sokoto, excuse me. Lasso done, a lie, a so-called wife minutes before vehicle plunged into a river source. Nigeria can earn billions from exporting human feces, cockroaches. That's according to Dawn. All right, that story, it's a very interesting read there. The big story on the front page of today's first news reads, electricity prepared to pay higher tariff from next week, Discos tell Nigerians. Okay. Nigeria public debt rises to 49 trillion naira. Now remember that, just to go back briefly to the issue of electricity, we understand that the proposed hike in tariff is taking effect or will take effect by 1st of July. Many Nigerians have kicked against that. There are those who have argued that it will worsen the hardship that Nigerians are already grappling with. But let's see how much more consultation can be done before July the 1st. Huge crowds circle Kaaba as Hajj begins in Saudi. 8 kidnappers who killed INEC employee in Ebonyi arrested. 8 kidnappers who killed INEC employee in Ebonyi arrested. Why naval officer slapped me in U.S.? Tinubu is the one there speaking. All right. Then we turn to the Abuja Inquirer now. Above the nameplate, it reads, how yes father decided Benue Guba polls. Reports how yes father decided Benue Guba polls. All right. Baka the Salah to, okay, then we'll look at just the big story there. Agbakoba told you others to Tinubu, Nigerians experiencing hardship. Okay, if you take a look at the right corner of the front page of the Abuja Inquirer, Envoy, UK waiting for Tinubu to appoint ministers. All right, they are not the only ones waiting, incidentally. And then for the Nation's newspaper, the stories are equally big as well, particularly on the front page this morning. All right, we have a story, a headline there with the picture of the UK High Commissioner, Mr. Montgomery. There says, Envoy, population of Nigerian students in UK rose by 107,000 in 3 years. Okay. And then you look at the big story. It says, experts optimistic despite foreign reserves drop to $34 billion. Eminent Nigerian small mass communication professor Lai Osho, why discos are bent on electricity tariffs increase. AEDC, fluctuation of Naira exchange rates makes upward review inevitable. Dogara Oshoba back petrol subsidy removal, service chiefs. Okay, these are big stories for today coming to you on the front page of the Nation newspaper. But if you look at the top right, above the nameplates, says any bank CFO Mokhtar wins Africa's award. Largest ever pilgrimage begins in Saudi Arabia. That's a story on page 3 of the Nation newspaper. All right, then we turn to the Punch as well. On the Punch newspaper, you find that there are big stories equally. We'll begin from the headlines above the nameplate. Debt servicing rose to 1.24 trillion naira in Q1 2023 reports. Okay, Discos failed to remit 208 billion naira, says federal government. Lagos Ibadan gridlock traps motorists for hours. I'm sure the rain didn't help matters either, so you can imagine how much worse it became for motorists using the Lagos Ibadan expressway. But the big one on the front page of today's Punch newspaper says, Naira devaluation pushes up vehicles duties by 40%. Customs raise exchange rate from 422 Naira to 589 Naira to the dollar. Operators kick as import duties jump. Economists berates FG, say policy will cause job loss. Impoverished Nigerians worsen hardship. All right, it's a big one, quite frankly, talking about some economic implications of Naira devaluation there, in particular for the excise duties, right? 452,443 UTME candidates jostle for 78,578 medicine spaces. Masked gunmen kidnap Ogun, beats woman, villagers rescue farmer. Clerics warn Muslims not to borrow for Salah rams. I think that's a very timely piece of advice, because by the time Salah ends, one way or another, you've got to pay your debts, all right? So you don't have to take your eye off the essence of the season in the name of borrowing to buy a ram or to celebrate Salah generally, okay? So as they say, cut your coats according to your cloth. All right, 2023 Hajj, 6 Nigerian pilgrims dead. Soldiers intercept oil-laden bunkering boats in Niger Delta. Arid mob kills butcher in Sokoto over alleged blasphemy months after Deborah Samuel. Fallout of royal criticism, I'll never fight Oba of Benin. And you're wondering who is saying that? Well, you can read up that story today on the front page of the Daily Times, all right? Then let's see, that's former minister, actually, who's saying that, talking about Prince Clem Agba, immediate past Minister of State for Finance, Budget and National Planning. It was actually a fallout of his visit to the Oba of Benin, Oba Ewa II, to intimate him of his stewardship while he was holding that ministerial position. But then a bit of drama ensued from the response he got. And then that again has made news with several angles to it. All right, let's look at the Guardian newspaper this morning quickly, everyone. Let's see what the Guardian has got for us. A 40% hike in vehicle duties worsens transport crisis, poverty. That story is on page 6 of today's Guardian newspaper. UK awaits Tinubu's cabinet ready for stronger ties with Nigeria. That story you'll find on page 6. Okay, media professionals mourn eulogize departed last Sudan Osho. 6 Nigerian pilgrims dead, 8 others ill as 2023 Hajj rites begin. Is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Community pharmacists decry 15% vaccination rate. What else? Nigeria loses $50 billion yearly to foreign domination. Non-implementation of Cabotage Act. All right, big stories today from The Guardian. But you look at the Guardian newspaper on the front page now, you see history of customs FX rates review right there. All right, then you want to look that up so you understand exactly what the conversation is about, how Naira devaluation will have implications, or already has serious implications for those in the maritime sector. Okay, then let's see our next paper now. Let's see what our next paper says this morning. The blueprints. Let's go straight to the blueprints quickly. The blueprint says 6 Nigerians die, 30 with mental cases as Hajj rites begin today. NACON airlifts 95,000 million of pilgrims millions of pilgrims moved to Muna. A commission issues guidelines to operate 18 clinics. Oshun pilgrims reject food over poor quality. That's interesting. Oshun pilgrims reject food over poor quality. You'll find details of this story on page 6 of today's Blueprint newspaper. Okay. Minority Senate leadership, beware of banana peel. Alero, Tambuwal, others warn Akbabio. Page 6 is where you find details of that story. CBN, Bill Gates to collaborate on financial inclusion. Details of the story await you on page 25 of today's Blueprint newspaper. Violence may stop Kogi Guba election, ACF chair warns on page 5. No going back on electricity tariff hike come July 1. AEDC. Okay. Then News Direct also has quite a number of stories this morning. Above the nameplate of Nigerian News Direct, Dambata lifts platinum award for NCC's performance. Food safety, NAFDAC vows to enforce good hygiene practices in bread production. Withdraw regulations on customer social media handles or face legal action, Serap tells CBN. Withdraw regulations on customer social media handles or face legal action, Serap tells CBN. All eyes on Tinubu's cabinets with several riders to that headline. UK eyes formation of cabinets to strengthen economic relations, prioritize merits over political patronage, Arewa Economic Forum. Appoint experienced technocrats to lead power sector. That's credited to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN. Okay, All Africa Business Leaders Awards, Zenith Bank CFO Mokhtar Adam emerges Chief Financial Officer of the Year. Okay, you find that story on page 2. 50 people killed, 170 houses burnt in Imo communities. President Ohaneze Youth Council. Okay, what else? Those are basically the stories for you today on News Direct. So you want to look up details when you pick up a copy of that paper this morning. But then let's take a look at a bit of business from Business Day. Okay, and then we begin from just above the nameplate of Business Day, this 26th day in the month of June. It's a big story. It says strong Naira versus low interest rates leaves investors guessing. And that's not a good place to be for the investors and for the economy as well. FMDQ set to go live with its exchange-traded derivatives, positions to convert uncertainty to financial security for businesses. That's the big story there on today's Business Day. Let's look at the left corner of the front page of Business Day. World Drug Day, Nigeria's drug war hits roadblock as new varieties emerge. Okay, but again, we find consolation in the work and the commendable work being done by the NDLEA in that regard to fight not just the way drugs have become commonplace on the street, but to also take the fight straight to the kingpins, those who are behind the distribution of illicit drugs in our society. Okay, let's see one headline here. It says IHS versus shareholders, what a hostile takeover means. All right, you can find details of the definition of a hostile takeover with several examples there for you when you pick up a copy of Business Day this morning. Incidentally, there's a wrap on newspaper review this morning on Global Morning. As usual, I would encourage you to take a look at the papers for yourself, read details, and find context to stories. That's one way we also fight fake news, because you're able to get official sources, authoritative sources, lending their voices to these issues. So just read all the papers, get informed, stay informed, right? The show continues right here. Stay with us on Global Morning.
I am for everybody, I am for nobody.
No, you not talk about me. No.
In another way.
How are you sure, sir?
Keep quiet. I am in another way. I am for everybody, I am for nobody.
The only area where Buhari defeats for that statement, now only appointment. When you are talking about project, project spell at God. You say you need to spell at God. What does this mean? But you say appointment, and in the type of appointment, you appoint people to God. But if you like this man, I'm ready to whether our leaders are the government. You know how many people when they get the picture first. Why una no come win it? How una no win it? Get the picture in our enemy. Your enemy. Why don't go win this Lagos? Why not be the population? Now see, let me.